I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down.
Hey guys, what is going on? It is Clydesdale Media Roundtable time, back at our normal time, and we have been off the air all weekend by choice. We want to explain what all that is, and we wanted to take some time to remember our friend Lazar Djukic. I am by no means were we best friends or anything like that, but we were very good acquaintances, and I knew him, he knew me. We spoke when we saw each other, and so I want to open it up to the crew who also knew Lazar and or Lazar. I'm sorry, Kat. I'll get it right. Lazar, and open it up to you guys on memories that you had of him. So whoever wants to take the floor first.
Well, I know you guys met him first virtually, so maybe you should start with that first time you guys talked with him and Luca.
Yeah, so we interviewed the brothers the first time. This was right after they had qualified for the games, I guess, back in 2021, right? And I remember, it's funny, I remember my very first sort of bit of information that I heard about Lazar that I found out about was that he qualified in 2019 and that he didn't accept his invite. And my cynical brain went right to, he's doping. He's got to be doping. Like, why else would you not go to the games, right? You must be on drugs. You got to cycle off and everything else. And I guess, I don't know if we asked him or someone had explained to us that he wasn't ready. And it's funny because I went back and listened to the interview that he did with Dave just a few weeks ago. And he explained sort of why he did that. And he didn't want to be that guy that showed up, and just like finished last or just, or got cut potentially because he wasn't ready for the big stage. And that was the year, as you all recalled it, national champions got invites and a lot of people showed up, for the apparel and then, exit stage left after event one, because of the event. So that was kind of the first aha moment. Like it was a lesson to me, like you hear about people and you hear stories and you just kind of jump to conclusions. Right. And then, after getting to know him, I thought like, there's no way this guy cheated, right? There's no way that this is what he was. And it's funny because I saw pictures of him that I took from the 2021 games and then seeing him now, like he's grown, physically since then. Like if he was on something, they weren't very good. If he was, in 2019, because he wasn't that developed as he is now, which I'm sure just comes from, all the hard work that he put in. But, my initial memories of him are just, like I said, he was always very open to talk, always wanted to talk. And I remember even during the games when we saw him, like no one was really talking to him. Nobody really knew who he was. And I was like letting him in the wrong door in the arena because he wanted to get in and watch, Luca do stuff. It was just, he was just like a regular guy. He never put himself on a pedestal or acted like he was too good to talk to us. And who are we? Like we just, we're not like big names in the space. He did not, have to, for the benefit of his career or anything, treat us a certain way, because of that. He did because that's the kind of person he was.
What's interesting about that was we had just started working with the Morning Chalk Up. We were taking over the Bottom Line. That was our first interview when we took over.
It was? I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't remember that until you said that.
It was, and I can tell because the thumbnail graphic is so bad. But we took over and we thought we had this super cool story of these two brothers making the games in the same year. And we were so excited to talk to them, and how excited they were to talk to us was this really cool kind of vibe that we got from them. And they were laughing and giggling the entire interview.
It was sweet.
And he did explain in that interview to us that he turned down the 2019 games because he wanted to be better prepared. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really cool of him. And it's just a really cool memory. But the other thing, and I mentioned this in my post, during that time, Kat had asked him how to pronounce his name. And she still has that message from him where he did a voice memo telling us how to pronounce his name. You played it at dinner on Sunday night, and it took everything in my being not to like completely lose it.
Yeah. And I had gone back to my DMs on Friday to pull up, and I think I had posted like a little excerpt of him. I had said something like, "Love you, buddy." And it was after the 2021 games where he didn't place as well as he thought he would. And he's like, "Thanks, Kat." We were going to talk to him about a recap and things like that. And that's as far back as I went. For whatever reason, I didn't go back very far. And then I was sitting with my friend Paul at the games on Saturday, and he said, "You knew Lazar. Like, what was your relationship like with him?" And I said, "Well, and I just kind of was showing him like, oh, we talked on Instagram, and I was scrolling, and then I started scrolling more. And I guess I didn't have service where I was the first time, and I was scrolling like 10 times, like down the page to the very first interaction where I saw that screen recording or the voice recording. And I knew as soon as I saw it, like the hair on the back of my neck stood up because I was like, I have his voice. Like, and I didn't quite remember what the interaction was, but I listened to it for the first time sitting in the stands, and I had the same reaction, Scott. It was just like, it brought back all these emotions, like, oh, because then you hear him talking, and I remember how appreciative he was of that, because still no one really, not a whole lot of people say his name correctly. And he didn't care, but he didn't care. I projected that onto all the athletes. Because I care when people mess up my name. And I think if you're going to say somebody's name, respect them enough to pronounce it correctly the way they would. And that was really cool. And I'm pretty sure I probably sent that to like Sean Woodland or something, because I remember I'd be listening to the broadcast and they would mess up the name. And I was probably the asshole sending them a note being like, "Hey, this is how you say it." And I would record my own voice saying it the way they should. And I know the games does that at the beginning. They probably have everyone record their voice so the announcers know how to pronounce it correctly, but it gets lost in translation sometimes, I guess. But yeah, that was a cool thing. And I will cherish that. Right. It was really cool.
And then I remember, I think it was just the three of us. And then we interviewed him, and we talked about later on, like a full interview, and talked about Dubai, I think, and some of the other competitions. And then that's really when the first time, like, I had the opportunity to engage with him virtually that way. And then the funny story from when we were at the games that I'll share.
Yeah.
Was that 2021?
22.
It was 2022. And
okay, yeah.
And to this day, one of my best, prior to this tragedy happening, was one of my best memories of the games.
Yeah.
Ever.
So it was, so Kat and I were in the media row, like we were in the seats, not down on the field or in the Coliseum, but it was the workout where they had to do single unders. And then if they, made it through that, then it was the, crossovers and all that.
And the pegboard.
So like all of the athletes were literally like coming up and lining up in front of us and right in front of us. And he had turned around and he looked at us and, started talking to us, like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going?" And I remember he started to do pull-ups on the
railing.
The railing. Yeah. He started to do pull-ups, and he's like, "I'm just trying to get that tennis elbow, from happening. Got to get that worked out before I go into the pegboards." And then I remember afterwards he came up to us and he was like, did I make it through? Did I make it? And Kat and I are like
right after he got off the floor, like he legit was hoping we were going to tell him whether,
right.
Like I thought we turned into his coaches for a second. I was like, "Oh, wait, who are we?"
And I was like, I mean, we're coaches, but we're not games coaches. But it was just like, yeah, we were trying to be so respectful of all the athletes. Like, even though we had interviewed so many that were in line there, we were like, listen, they're in competition.
They're in the zone. Yeah.
We are not engaging them. And he's just one, yeah, got to do these pull-ups, got to work out that tennis elbow. And that just his smile and being excited, like to take the floor.
Yeah.
Was really cool.
My final memory, and that was him all the time. Like whenever you ran into him, that was the vibe he gave off every time. And my final memory is in 2021, when he does finally go to the games, the event where they ran around Madison and then came in and did toes to bar and then sprinted to the end. He was winning that event. And in our recap show, during the toes to bar, he fell off the bar.
Yep.
And then got up, finished, and then ended up coming in second. And he laughed at himself so much for falling off the bar. Like, instead of like being upset about it or forlorn that he didn't get an event win, or he just was laughing. Like, can you believe it? Like, of all times to lose my grip on a toes to bar, there it was. And
do you remember the event when he wore the Reeboks that Pat Vellner got for him and he won the event?
With toes to bar?
Yeah, with toes to bar.
Because he
That
held
must have been
on.
2021.
Yeah.
yeah.
Very, very cool stories. And I was looking back at our conversations. There was a time, as you recall, where he didn't have a coach that was traveling with him. And do you remember we joked about like getting his coach's pass at one point in time? Because I was like, hey, if you need somebody back there, because he wasn't going to have anybody there. His brother didn't qualify. I don't think anyone was going to support him. And there was an exchange between us about something about like who's getting your pass. He's like, oh, I got someone to take my pass. I'm like, oh, okay, darn.
Yeah.
That was
and I know, and we don't want any. There's not going to be any hate in this episode at all.
No.
This is about love. Lazar was always jovial, was always smiling, was always laughing, and that's what I want this show to be, so that we can start to heal and we can start to move on. So the next thing I want to talk about is just the vibe at the arena, because I think there's some misconceptions of what it was like to be there. And it was, and I'll let Kat tell her side as well, but when I was there and it all went down, I was there alone. Kat hadn't got there yet. It all happened. And when it all happened, I felt stuck. I felt like I couldn't go anywhere. And I want to thank Grant, Keeping It Real, and Amanda Hari for just like teaming up to like get through this weekend, because I watched the first event from my hotel room because I got in late and couldn't get media passes. When I found out what happened, I rushed to the venue to get the media passes just to find out next steps. And it took everything I could do to get there.
I can't imagine the stress that you had just getting there. Because I know I was on an airplane when it was all happening. And, I paid for the Wi-Fi so that I could like stay connected, and it like wasn't working properly. And I was getting texts from some people and not from others, and trying to get updates. And you feel so helpless. Like I wished I was there.
And so I get into the venue, I go to the media room, and again, thank you so much for Grant and Amanda for that. We finally hear they're going to cancel everything, but there was no communication for a while. Like there was nothing going on. And it just made it more intense and somber and everything in that moment. And then when everything was canceled, we had to be out of the arena like fairly quickly. So we went to a coffee shop and just kind of hung out to kind of talk through it. And at that point, we didn't know what was happening. And we didn't know if it was going to go on or not. What were we going to do? We're all stuck there. We can't get other flights out until Monday. And all this while being extremely sad and trying to process it all. Kat, you finally get there Thursday night. You're too late to get any kind of media pass.
Yeah.
So you can't even get to anything until the next day. The next day comes, everything starts, and it's just not the same. I understand why they move forward. I understand why some people left. I take nothing away from anybody that made a choice, because it was just tough. Thursday, if I could have jumped on a plane and got home to my family, I would have done that.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that would have been the right choice. I don't even know if I would have regretted it or whatever. So, but anyway, we get through it, and I felt like at that point, all I could do was love on the athletes because I knew they were hurting. And the only way I could show love is to be there and support them. But I chose to like go silent. Like, this was not a point to like throw up a bunch of social media stuff. This was not a point to do shows. You couldn't analyze what was on the floor because you didn't know how bad any of the athletes were hurting. And so when you see someone do burpees not as fast as they normally do, you can't even be critical of that, right? Yeah. And so that's why we went radio silent for the weekend, and I just loved on everybody that I had the opportunity to love on. Because the spectators were hurting, the volunteers were hurting, the athletes were hurting. And I know there were some comments about like everything's back to normal, the music's loud, it was not normal. Mm-hmm. It was the farthest thing from normal.
Yeah. It was. And I never, these events, you look forward to seeing your friends, the people that you don't see very often. And for me, it had been 2 years since I'd been to the game. So I didn't go to any semifinals. I was really excited, to see people again. And when I did, it was, just a somber hug. It was just a hug, no words. And we kind of just moved forward. It didn't even feel right to say like, hey, how you doing? Or, oh, it's great to see you. Like, you don't know what to say. And for us, at least my role there at the games just kind of evaporated, which was fine. Like, I didn't care that I didn't get to do what I wanted to do when I got there, but it was just, I just kind of became a spectator at that point in time. And I felt bad for not taking advantage of the credentials I had to do a job that maybe I was supposed to do, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that job. So I didn't know what to do. I wasn't about to throw a mic in an athlete's face and ask them how they felt, because I wouldn't know what to say. And that's not to take away anybody that did that. I understand that, people did behind the scenes and all that. I didn't have that kind of access, nor was that, my role that weekend. But I didn't even really take many photos. I think I took like 2 photos on my iPhone and maybe like 100 on my camera, where normally it would be thousands, to sift through. Cause I just felt like I didn't have a purpose, and I'm not like, oh, woe is me because of it. Like, it just, that's what it was. I didn't know what else to do. It just became very, very odd. Even the way we interacted with people. And, I know we didn't get to like the last day, but at the last night when I was getting ready to leave, this young woman came up out of the stands, and Mike and I were getting ready to leave. And she came up to me and she said, "Hi, I'm by myself. Can I have a hug?" And I just like started crying and I gave her a hug and I said, where are you from? And of course you can have a hug. And she's like, "You look like nice people. I just need like somebody to talk to." She was from Oklahoma. And she didn't know who I was. I was just a person in the audience to her, but it was so sweet. And I thought, like, I can't imagine spending the whole weekend there by myself. The fact that my boyfriend came with me and Scott was there, and I know so many people in the environment to be able to lean on and talk to. And I had friends from another gym in Maryland here that had a whole row of seats, and we talked. But it was crappy.
The last thing I'm going to say is I'm so glad that Kara's team won, because the speeches that they made were what we needed to hear in the arena. I don't know how it went over on the stream and all of that, but in the arena, we needed to hear Kara say, it's okay to have multiple emotions.
Yeah.
We're human, and you can be sad, and you can be happy, and you can love on people,
and want change. And you could, those both. And like Megan says up here, can't we be angry that it happened while also supporting the athletes, grieve with those who are hurting, and ask for accountability?
100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the part I want to leave it with today is kind of like, where do we go from here, right? And as a sports fan who's been around several sports, I just want to give some context, right? There have been deaths in a lot of sports, both on the fan side and the athlete side. At the Tour de France last year, there were cyclists that died during the race. Dale Earnhardt at NASCAR dies during a race, like the legend of the sport dies during a race. There have been people in other sports that have passed away during the event, and they've all moved on, but not without massive change, right?
Yeah.
It is obvious from social media that the athletes want a voice now, and they are now empowered to have that voice.
Well, and just to add one piece on that, and I think the other big piece is that not about necessarily moving forward, but people don't want it to be forgotten. They don't want Lazar to be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's an important piece to that. Like, yes, keep talking about him, keep bringing it up. Don't let it be forgotten.
Right.
Yeah.
The key point is nothing ever gets solved with hate. Right. We need to be constructive and we need to move forward. Here in Columbus, a little girl died at a hockey game.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately netting went up behind the goals on both sides of the arena so that pucks could not get to the stands, right? Someone died at a baseball game. Now there's netting the entire way down both the first and third base lines at baseball games. There has to be massive change. There has to be. And now I think the PFAA is probably going to be as strong as it's ever been, probably tenfold.
Yeah.
So I am cool with moving forward, but there has to be change. And I believe there's no option other than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And maybe we can have a show where we talk about that, like what people's proposed changes are, because there's no bad ideas, right? And I'm not saying we need to be critical of what's going on or, call for resignations of people and litigation and all that, but just like have a little round table of like, what would you do? How would you change? Because I think that's important for us to talk through, and, probably somebody's got some good ideas, and I'm sure, maybe not wholesale, but a lot of them may or may not get implemented as we go forward, assuming that we do go forward with the sport. But I'd be curious, that to me, that's just my curious brain of like trying to fix things. Like what would we do to change? And, I've spoken to some people like off the record that have been in medical before and, been in the event space in CrossFit that have, really strong opinions about what happened or really strong opinions about how things could improve. And I think that's a constructive conversation that we could have maybe at a later date. Because I do think it's going to be quite some time before, we find out details about what happened and investigations and all of that.
Andrew,
I think. Go ahead.
Good.
No, I'm good.
If the games continue, there will be changes for sure. I think it's 50-50 whether the games continue, because there will be a big civil lawsuit. One, we don't know what that is. There are still facts to be determined. There is an independent investigation going on. There is a police investigation going on that we do not know any of those facts or findings at this point. I believe that it's more of a 90-10 that the games go on from all other sports. And so in the same weekend, 2 people died during the Ironman triathlon in Madison, Wisconsin. That is a very common thing to happen during a triathlon. Ironman has not gone away.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned other sports where that's happened, and they didn't even stop. Like the Tour de France didn't even stop. So I think it will go on, but it will go on in there at the very minimum, there will be a safety council that will have to approve all the events, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, and I don't think any of us want to see it go away. I mean, we're all, we're here because we love the sport. We make a lot of sacrifices to cover it. We use our own money to get there. Being a former volunteer, people spend a lot of money to do this, and we love the athletes and we love the sports and all that. And I think we want to see it succeed. At least I do. I want to see it succeed. And I want to be part of the solution and not part of sort of breaking it down, if that's possible.
While also remembering and talking about Lazar and
yes, keeping him in the forefront.
And both of those things can happen.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I hate that he is now going to become the poster child for safety at the games. Like, that sucks. Because he's so much more than that. And that's kind of why I feel like separating the two sometimes, like having this discussion was great and being able to talk about it. But I do think it's important that we talk about some potential solutions to the problem while still maintaining his honor, which is not going to be easy.
Yeah. None of this is going to be easy.
No.
So I didn't want this to be a long show today. I just wanted to kind of get through these comments we wanted to make. And again, we'll continue to talk about Lazar and carry his memory forward.
Yeah. And we should try to pull up some clips and things and just sort of celebrate him as we can and space them out. I don't want this whole week to be like all about it, and then a month from now we're not talking about it. So we'll try to keep up that cadence if we can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been a tough weekend, but I'm ready to heal. I'm ready to get back to some normalcy. But I know that that's going to take months for that to happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll see you next week, guys, on the Clydesdale Media Roundtable.
Love you guys.
Bye.